absolutely love the variations in guests that come on the podcast. Last week we had super spunky attitude. This week we have super sweet angelic, and there might even be a couple of tears during the episode. And no, I did not make my guest cry. But today I'm joined with Amanda Hedgepeth, and we're talking about taking the risk to move your life on your terms. She is an Outer Banks photographer, sorta, as you'll find out in the podcast, mom of three, and nonprofit founder. All the bio stuff, not even going to stick it here because there's so much to it. But basically, y'all, if you are wanting to take a risk in entrepreneurship, whether getting into entrepreneurship or moving into a different type of entrepreneurship, this is the episode for you to listen to. Come join me.
Welcome to the Business Bites Podcast, the podcast for busy entrepreneurs. Whether you're an online entrepreneur or seeking after brick and mortar success, this podcast brings you quick bites of content so you can learn and grow anywhere you are. Now here's your host, Rachel Brainpea.
Hey you, yes you. Do you have website terms and privacy policy on your website? If you don't, you really do need to have one, especially a privacy policy if you're collecting leads or having people subscribe to your newsletter. All right. What you're going to do is you're going to head over after the end of this episode. You're going to go to rachelbrainpea.com. You're going to check out the shop, and in the website template section, we have an immediate download of a lawyer drafted website terms and privacy policy bundle set. You can copy and paste it, fill in the blanks, get it onto your website in a shorter amount of time than one of my episodes. So go head over after the episode. But for now, let's continue on with Amanda. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Business Bites Podcast. I am your host, Rachel Brainpea. This is episode 124, and this is a perfect time in life right now for me to bring on my friend and fellow entrepreneur, Amanda Hedgepeth, because we are going to be talking about taking a risk to move your life on your terms. Unfortunately, some of you may ended up on this podcast because during the Corona crisis, you are having to take risks or pivot or change things due to stuff outside your control. But guess what? You still can take control, do things on your terms. And Amanda has not only done it once, but she's doing it again. And so I'm excited, Amanda, to talk about your path in entrepreneurship and the lessons you learn and the tips that our listeners can take to be risky and pivot. So welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful. I love this topic. It's really ironic that I'm talking about risk and pivoting because I am a total, historically, I'm a scaredy cat and I really like to play things safe. So when I talk about being brave and pivoting and doing things, it actually kind of amazes myself. And I'm like, hold on, who am I? How did I end up being this brave girl to take risk? And how am I an entrepreneur? Like me? No. I felt safe being an employee and, having somebody else run the show and I just show up. And here I am today, entrepreneur 10 years later, and we've made lots of pivots. So I'm so glad to be here and I love this subject. Thank you.
Of course. So let's start with your first pivot when you really got into entrepreneurship initially. And this is a story that's always resonated with me. It's always inspired me to think about moving life on my terms. So how did you guys make the decision? I guess tell the story. You tell the story of the decisions you made and kind of how you got into making those decisions.
So how I became an entrepreneur was I was waiting tables at this place in Virginia Beach. It's called Bubba's. It is on the water. It's beautiful, beautiful sunsets. And I was fine being a waitress because, in and out, just make my money, pick up a shift if I need extra money. Somebody else is the boss, whatever. Well, there's a wedding venue right beside that. And so I would wait tables. I would go to the top deck. I would look to my right. And I would stare at these weddings and I was like, I don't know why, but I want to do what that person's doing. The photographer. Yep. I want that job. Yep. I have no camera. Nope. No camera, but I really want to do it. I don't know why, but I think I can do it. I don't know where this confidence came from. Because it's just historically, it's just not how I've been growing up and always raised to do the safe thing, get your degree and then go do this and then go do that, work in a corporate office, whatever. And so I got a camera and then I practiced for 9 months and I ended up being a wedding photographer the next year, 22 weddings my first year, because some fire was lit inside of me to just go, show up, work hard, mess up, learn over and over. and I am so glad I did it. And then do you want me to tell about my next move when we moved
We'll
to
get to
Colorado?
that in a second. I wanna finish kind of the context of this story. So,
Okay.
were you and Mike married at the time? Were the kids in play, or was that still coming?
So we were actually engaged and we were getting married that summer. So it's hilarious because I'm like looking at these weddings and I'm like, oh, but I cared more about the photography. I was like, you would think I'm like this, like starry eyed, engaged, like look at all the weddings. And sometimes I would be, and I thought that was sweet, but I was like, wait a minute, I want that profession. So it's kind of ironic how I like just ended up in a completely different realm than I ever thought I would. But so he got me the camera and I just worked so hard. I took horrible pictures for a year and
Think
just
we all did.
right. Oh gosh. And we look back and I'm like, what is that vignetting? Sepia? Really? I mean, there's so many, I could say so many things. Everything's crooked. I'm like dizzy and nauseous looking at my pictures because everything's so tilted. But I look back and I'm so grateful that I was a brave enough person to even post that stuff and put it up and just learn and see what people had to say and just get better and better and better. And it would not have happened had I not been waiting tables staring at these people getting married. I was creeping, but I'm glad I did. I don't regret that.
You guys will have to look at the show notes. Amanda is like the sweetest angelic face. So when she's like, "I'm creeping," no one would even notice because you would just blend in and be normal. But all right, so you and Mike were engaged and you want to take the step to be a photographer. You got the camera. What did you tangibly do? I mean, you just started learning and just started shooting because it was risky. You had the confidence, but there had to have been fear.
Oh,
How did you combat that and learn what you needed to do to make the next steps?
so this is 2010. So this is a decade ago. No Instagram. Facebook was the jam. So I just show that like literally it's the most powerful two-word sentence that I reiterate, and I will not stop reiterating it. I just showed up. I show up and I show
Mhm.
up and I show up on Facebook on my personal page. Then December 2010, I create a business page on there and I don't stop showing up literally
Mhm.
for the next 7 years. And then I finally take a social media break for the first time in 7 years, but for like a month or something like that. But gosh, I mean, I just kept telling people, here's this thing I'm doing. I'm trying to make it happen. I'd like to do it for you. It's marketing 101. It's literally just showing up and talking about what you're doing. Whether you're good at it or not is a whole different ballgame. But I got better because I kept being willing to fail and do a bad job over and over and over, because I knew if I kept failing I would eventually get to the exact style I want and the exact type of
Mhm.
clients and everything. But you can't just get there. It is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It takes a while.
And I love how you just said that, and you guys can hear the excitement in her voice because I actually interviewed Brittany Janine last week on episode 123, and she talks in the very same way. We talked about like visual branding and how you may not be good at it, but like if your excitement and your messaging and your passion peeks through, you're going to show up and you're going to keep talking to people. And that is just so empowering to see this common trend amongst all these super successful entrepreneurs that I get to call friends now. But a lot of it is because they pivoted and moved, but they also just kept the passion and excitement into who they were and showed up each time.
Oh,
I love that.
I agree. I agree. People can actually feel whether or not you're burnt out on something, whether you like it, whether you actually enjoy it. And I always said it. I mean, the exclamation points, the smile on my face, the way that I spoke about my clients as if I actually really, really, truly cared and I was growing with them. It was just palpable. I mean, you could tell in all of my posts, even going back to the very beginning, like this was a dream and it was coming true and I was grateful. I was not taking a second of it for granted. I just couldn't help but share it, like pour it out of me. And I'm still like that. I actually just recorded something for one of my classes and I said, I am not burnt out. I love this still. I love
Mhm.
it because I did it on my own time and terms. And I've always maintained gratitude for it because if you lose that, people can feel it, they can tell.
So you started the photography business in Virginia Beach, right? When did you guys make the move down to the Outer Banks? Because that's a big risk if you've already established yourself in a market.
Oh my gosh. Especially, let's talk about the fact that, okay, Hampton Roads, heavily populated, tons of photographers, wonderful network community, so many clients. I was really established. And I'm going to take the move to a vacation town where people don't show up in the winter. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're talking like Memorial Day to Labor Day, slam packed busy. How did I make that pivot? It was a risk. It was a big risk that we took, but this was our mentality. I said, okay, Mike, I think I can move my business an hour and a half south, even though it's only an hour and a half south. It is a different world, whole different
Mm-hmm.
world. Am I willing to work so hard in the summer and show up and shoot as much as I can in the summer, and then save up really well in the winter and be mindful of the fact that I'm not going to have winter sessions like I did in Hampton Roads? We just decided that he was going to commute, and he commuted for like 2.5 years back to Virginia Beach. It was
Wow.
crazy, and it was really really difficult, but we wanted to move to the Outer Banks so bad, and we always this sounds so odd to some people, but people who love it here are going to get it. We love this place like a person. It's like New York City is to some people. It has a heartbeat,
Mm-hmm.
it has a soul. There's something that was so deeply connected to us with Outer Banks that it overrode our fear of like taking the leap. We just were like, oh well, like if we let's just do it. We got married here. And the way that we actually ended up deciding to move, it's this tiniest, most impactful moment we've ever had in our life. We got out, we got home after getting groceries in Virginia Beach, and there's an orange yellow glow on the parkway, and it kind of covers up the sky. You can't really see the stars. And there's my freakishly articulate baby. She's 2 years old. Cameron is hilarious, but like she was like born an old lady. So she looked up in the sky and she said, "There's just not enough stars here. Why don't we have stars here?" And
Oh.
we went inside and we were like, "That's it. We're going. There will be
Mm-hmm.
stars." And where we live now, we live on a harbor. Everyone turns their lights off at night and you can see all the stars. So we did it for so many different reasons, but that was like our big push. Like it was that moment, and we have never regretted it since.
And you kind of threw it in there, tucked in the fact that Mike was commuting and it was extremely hard. And that is kind of a little bit of what I wanted to hone in on this to that many times people look at a situation, they want to take a risk. They may feel that confidence in burning, like you're talking about, but then they're just like, oh, I just can't with my life circumstances. And, sometimes you just can't. But sometimes there's going to be a couple years you have to pay your dues. I always love the Dave Ramsey phrase. It's in relation to debt, but live like no one else so you can live like no one else. And so for a couple years, you guys lived with Mike commuting, very difficult for that to happen. And that has its own struggles, but look what the payoff has been now.
That's what we say. We always say, "Well, what's the trade-off?" So we live really simple. Some of our brides and grooms came to visit us in our Kitty Hawk condo, and it was 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, and we brought our third daughter home to that. It was tiny, tiny. We are so willing to live simple, to not own a lot of stuff, to not have the best car. We have always been like that, and we're actually still like that to this day. I don't know what it's like deeply ingrained in me, and I think it might go back to the days of like riding the
Mhm.
bus in Norfolk, no car, 4 years, picking up coins off the ground at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through and the McDonald's drive-through, trying to afford shampoo. I've got this grit and this willing to like do whatever it takes to survive and make money. So me and Mike were like, okay, we'll move. You'll commute. Hopefully, I can move my business down here successfully. But if not, it's still worth it. I will wait tables. I will do what it takes. I
Mhm.
will always have that grit. It's ingrained in me. I think it's from my dad. My dad used to get up at 4 in the morning and work, and I just had that example. So I really am willing to live simple, give up things, and there's no lifestyle that we need to fulfill. Our lifestyle is: do we have food on the table? Are we happy? And that's it. And if we've got that, then we're good to go. We're kind of unconventional like that. We've had friends who say they want to live down here, but they're just not willing to give up the lifestyle that they have.
Mhm.
So it just depends on what you value. What's your trade off? I mean, for us, our trade off, I don't know, I probably would have like given one of my arms. We just wanted to be here so bad because we just felt like it was right for us. So I'm glad it worked out for us, but I think that mentality is everything. What is your trade off? What are you willing to give up, or how are you willing to live to get what you want?
If somebody's listening to this and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love this. I just need a little push." I'm gonna tell you what. Go go to rachelricky.com/EPI124 because this is episode 124. I'm going to link all of Amanda's stuff, including her Instagram, her stories, and her feed are ones that I think about all the time when we talk about if we want to move, just pick up and go somewhere, what it is that we want, what are we willing to give up? And so I'm glad that you brought that whole message out, because I think sometimes it's too easy to sit and go, okay, got to take a risk. Let's do the money. Oh, we can't do it, so we're not going to do it. And you think about, what can I give up? What can I trade off? But in order to stay focused in getting the goal and giving stuff up, look to other people like Amanda who have done it, and like how that joy and excitement. I mean, you just bloomed so much when you moved from Virginia Beach to
Oh yeah.
Outer Banks. And I noticed that online. And I've heard, I mean, I see you at conferences and stuff, but I consistently have seen a personal growth, and which I do want to talk about your nonprofit here in a bit too. But I just look at the way that you took hold and the risks were there, did what needed to be done, but still has that appreciation for the risk that you took.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm really proud because I'm gonna tell you what, I'm a wimp. Okay. I cry all the time. I
It
cry.
is kind of true.
Listen, Rachel will tell you, I am not playing. I cry almost, okay, not every Instagram live, but I cry because I get my feels. I'm an Enneagram 1. I move toward the Enneagram 4. I start getting real wrapped up and consumed by my feelings. I'm a very passionate girl. It's just who so true. But yeah, yeah. I cannot help it. You're right, Rachel. I am. I do. I cry. I'm sorry. I cry a lot.
But you know what? That honestly, it's not like sad crying. You can see that she's proud of the choices that she made. And it was all about the risk stuff. So let's move on from talking about moving to Outer Banks. Let's go into your newest pivot in risk that you're taking, which when we scheduled this, you hadn't even announced this yet. So do you want to share that?
Yes. Okay. So, there's that girl on the deck waiting tables, holding that tray of soft shell crabs, looking over, just wanting to be that wedding photographer. I get the dream. I have the dream for 9 years. We shot internationally, England, Anguilla, British Virgin Islands, all over the East Coast. I have been a full-time wedding photographer for so long. And last Thursday, we get on Instagram Live, and of course I boo-hoo, but Mike and I sat together and we announced that we're no longer shooting full wedding days. And we're willing, well, I'm willing to still do the little 2 hour guys, vow renewals and all that stuff and elopements. But we're not going to do full day weddings anymore. And that's a hard pivot to make when that's been such a huge part of your brand and identity. And I think I could probably think of a few of my friends even who have stuck with it even when they know it's time to move on,
Right.
out of fear. But
Mhm.
what overrode that for us was the fact that we were in a car accident a few years ago and it was really bad. And I just got so beat up and I've just got permanent damage. So by the end of a wedding day, I'm like barely functioning. I mean, I do a good job and I push through, but it's all adrenaline. So like I get in the car and I'm just sick to my stomach and it's so difficult. And also because our kids are now at the age where they can actually
Mhm.
say, because when they were babies, this wasn't an issue. Now they can say, "Hey, I don't want you to go out of town for another wedding. Can you please not do that?" So we're like,
Mhm.
all right, the combination of the two was enough for us to be like, all right, it's time to move on. And, we've just pivoted into so many other things that it's okay. It's okay to lay it down, but it's bittersweet.
No, and I think it's great because during this time, you also started hosting a digital shop online called the Five Waves Shop. You also teach entrepreneurs. You have courses and stuff for photographers. Do you do other creative entrepreneurs? Is it general?
We just launched also a business mini class, literally just for people who have a thing that people come to them for and they could be getting paid. And for me to walk them through like the behind the scenes of my process. But yeah, we've got the photography mini class, a beach course,
Mhm.
a business mini class. We've got the 5 Wave shop with digital downloads and an Outer Banks print shop. We do a lot of things. And Mike also has like 27 jobs. Like we just do so much, but we don't feel like we're really busy because we're pretty good at spacing it all out. So at least, yeah, at least we're not drowning in it.
Yeah, but I definitely see parallels between what you were saying earlier. Even if we moved and it didn't work out and I didn't get weddings, I would just wait tables in the meantime and keep trucking along with it. And same right here. It's developing multiple income streams to help support to allow you to take a pivot. So you've actually gone from in the very beginning, You didn't have backup income streams. You just had the grit and passion to do it. And now you've evolved. And actually, I think it's kind of lessened the risk over the years. Although you guys have more to risk now with having the kids, etc., it's lessened the risk and it allows you to make these choices, especially when it's one that you don't get a choice whether or not to be physically hurt or not. That's something that I think a lot of listeners can't really comprehend just because they haven't had that in their life. And I'll stick it on the show notes for you guys. I interviewed a couple different people. I've had cancer. I interviewed Tosh before, and we talked about that, just chronic illness type things. What do you do? And I think it's a very real thing that often we say taking a risk, you think, oh, it's a risk that's going to be my choice only to take. You might be forced to take that risk because of an outside circumstance, like
Yeah.
health.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I totally agree with that. There's so much that's out of our control. And with the car accident stuff, so we were getting in the car accident and I'm like, all right, I'm in the hospital and I'm like, this is how much I love shooting weddings and my brides. This is how much I love them. My friend drives 3 hours, brings me clothes, everything. She goes, what can I do? I said, you email my brides and tell them I'm there. Like, she's like, really? Like, that's what you want me to do right now? I'm like, yes, the commitment is so real. It's so real. But I feel like I kind of got tapped out and did what I could. I pushed through as much as I can. And now I know it's time to pivot. But gosh, these classes and not even just like creating your own stuff, sometimes just being an affiliate for a company you like or believe in, that's another stream of income. People don't know how many streams of income they can have. It sounds like it's so much work. Sometimes it's really not. It really is easy once you get things set up. But yeah, all of that stuff has really carried us through, especially with the coronavirus, everything going on. We were so grateful to be able to pivot to online stuff because we'd already dabbled in it before. And I was like, all right, here we go.
Mhm.
Mini class, Facebook group. Here we go. I'm teaching. Let's do it.
So how long were you thinking about quitting wedding photography before you actually did it?
Oh, that's like a really juicy question because I'm like, what will my brides think if they hear this? So I think there was a certain wedding that I felt really bad at the end of. I think it's been like a year, like at least a full year, maybe since last spring. I I was like I was doing everything I could to just like physically be okay at this wedding, but I kept using adrenaline to get me through, and so that's
Mhm.
not good for me because if I have too many adrenaline rushes, I get really nauseous. So I told you I'm a whip. Like I'm brave, but I'm also a whip, a little sensitive Sally. That's who I am, and I won't apologize. I tried, and I just kind of like by the end of the wedding, I looked at Mike and I said, I don't. I don't want to say it out loud. He was like, "You don't think we can do weddings anymore?" I'm like, "Oh
Mhm.
man, thank you for saying it for me." But he just knew that physically I'd had it, but I didn't. It was like a year ago, and I didn't look at me just announcing last Thursday. It was really hard for me to take that off the table because people are in my DMs and they're like, "I really wanted you. I'm so sad. I was gonna book you," and I'm
Mhm.
like, "I'm sorry. I feel so bad, but you can always come to Outer Banks and I'll do a family session with you. Thank you
Right?
very
Food
much." But I
style
can
too
still sit
down here.
with
Yeah.
you.
So let me ask you this. In that time though, I know you were struggling with the emotional decision. Were there like financial or other factors that went into play of why you waited so long also?
That's a really good question. I think yes. I will say yes. We were like, well, how can we turn down wedding money? Like, how can we do that? But the thing is, when you are booking weddings and you're really invested in the process, so you're email back and forth with clients and you're shooting their engagement session, I could also be using that time to create like passive streams of income and online
Mhm.
classes. And we just made with our 2 online classes that we just launched, we just made what we used to make in over 2 weddings. And that's a lot of money for us. So we were
Mhm.
like, wow, okay, hold on. We could have done this sooner if I just would have like shifted my perspective. But here's the thing, like with the coronavirus stuff going on, I think people are realizing, yes, people are
Mhm.
getting hit hard, but I think that they're having to get creative about
Yeah.
making money, but they're getting forced into it. When it's an option, like, am I going to give up weddings or am I not? It's really hard to like back out and just not bite the bullet and make that decision. But oh my gosh, with everything going on, I'm just like, yeah, we could totally pull off not shooting weddings. And you gotta think outside the box, gotta get creative and realize that you're gonna get that time back that you would be editing or shooting
Yeah.
engagement, whatever. You can get that
Mhm.
time back and use it towards something where you don't have to leave the house.
So how did you get into the nonprofit portion of this? I mean, you have a lot going on, and I know your heart. I love your heart for giving and serving. And so I wasn't surprised when you started it. I just have always wondered how you manage that with everything else.
Oh my gosh. So I'll tell you the story of how we started this nonprofit. So our nonprofit is called Homeless Looks Like. And basically, I started this whole thing because my dad, who people love, he's gonna listen to this podcast. I bet he's like whatever minute this is on the podcast, he's already crying. He loves me
Oh.
so much. He is the hardest worker I know, and everybody loves him. He's just got this larger than life personality. He's just so full of himself too, which is adorable. He actually a few years ago lost his job, his car, and his home, and he became homeless. And a man who has a work ethic like that and shows up that much in his life, who becomes home, it's kind of shocking, but it speaks very clearly about the fact that we do not know somebody's story unless we ask. And to be assumptive and just say, oh, they're homeless, that's their fault, whatever. I mean, he worked so hard and he was in a very poor financial situation. He could not afford his life and he was not spending big, trust me. And so, what we wanted to do was create some compassion and connection for people by telling their stories of homelessness and raising money for other nonprofits. So we raise money for other nonprofits who take care of the homeless, and we do like immediate street outreach. But it's kind of light right now because we're still kind of new. We're like a little over a year in. So I don't do too much with it. I check in about 3 times a month and just see who we can help and who we can fundraise for. But I love it. It's on my terms and time. It fits perfectly into my schedule. And maybe one day more of that passive income will come in and then I
Mhm.
can give more time to the nonprofit. That's my dream, to just really show up for it. But right now it's in its little baby phase, but it's doing great and it's making an impact.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with this, was to show the transition from the very beginning of wanting to have X, then moving on to Y, and then doing what you need to do so that you can potentially move into something that's nonprofit, something that won't reap any financial reward for you, that fulfills that intrinsic part of
Yeah.
you and what you want to do with life. And I think for me, it's really easy for me to get on the podcast and when I speak at conferences and I'm like legal this and business strategy that, but I really am first and foremost just wanting to be able to have a flexible life and live the lifestyle that I want, whatever that looks like. I don't necessarily want to be working 500 hours per week. I
Yeah.
love business and I would do it if I had to. I did do it in the very beginning.
Mhm.
But yeah, like that's my goal too, is so that I can have side things, nonprofits, and be able to serve in other ways that aren't necessarily quote unquote business, but my business has to be there to sustain it.
Yes. And, I think people are so afraid. Oh my gosh, like me, gosh, 15 years ago, Amanda, no way. I'm not being an entrepreneur and I'm not starting a nonprofit. No, I want to work for someone
Mhm.
else. It's safe, it's easy. When you realize that, it really is about spending your time wisely. I love the book Essentialism. Oh my gosh, so good about really just doing the things you need to do to move forward. Like it makes so much sense. You do realize that you really are in control of your time and your schedule. And I don't have to show up 9 to 5 to run my nonprofit. I don't. I think people think it's like a trade off. So you're going to go
Mhm.
into entrepreneurship and nonprofit organizations and you're going to do 9 to 5 there. That's not true. You actually don't need that many hours to put into it. I don't think you do. It just depends on what you're doing, though, I guess. But
Well, and
I,
I think a lot of that comes from you're also a solid business person when it comes to being organized, simplifying list making and workflows and stuff. But you didn't start there. And I think that's also another big thing here. If someone's listening, going, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to get to the point that I have passive income and a family and a nonprofit. Well, that's because you may not necessarily right now be equipped with those tools. And Amanda Hedgepeth of 2009, 2010 wasn't equipped with those tools. You learn those over time.
Exactly. And not only was I not equipped, but I was like 100% sure this would never be in the stars for me. It was just like, no, that's just it's too scary. It's too intimidating. It's too much. It's too complicated. And it's not. Like, even my bookkeeping, like everything we do is so simplified because it's the way my brain works. So as long as I'm doing things officially and I'm, paying my taxes and doing what I'm supposed to do, really, you can simplify a lot of the process. I am all about that life, sister. Yes. Yes.
Love it. Love it. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for taking time. I know you guys are extremely busy with those beautiful babies of yours. They're not so baby anymore.
No, they're big.
But do you have one last tip? Maybe someone who's listening who just wants to take that risk, but they're really scared to. What could you say to help push them over the edge to just fly?
I think the best thing that you could do is to simplify everything and just create like an actual project list. Okay, what do I need to do if I want to set up my business or I want to start something? Just start one list and like keep it nice and simple and just go down the list one thing at a time. You do not have to do everything at once. Just like Rachel said, me 10 years ago, I wasn't equipped with all of this. It's been a slow build. Okay, I got my LLC. What's next? Contracts. What's next? This. What's next? It is really a slow process and it's intentional. But if you can simplify it and not try to do everything, just one project a week, a month, a day, whatever, it's going to come to fruition. You just have to be patient and not think that you have to have it all together right out of the gate, because that's just not possible.
I love it. Well, thank you, Amanda, so much for coming on, taking time out to do this. Guys, don't forget to head over to rachelbrunke.com/EPI124. And as always, we will have a thread dedicated in the Facebook community group, Business Bites. Just search it on Facebook. And it will be dedicated to this episode. You can learn about risks that other entrepreneurs in our community have taken, share your story, help someone out, offer more tips. And I will talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for joining Rachel on this episode of the Business Bites. For show notes, a list of recommended tools, or referenced episodes, you can find them at businessbitespodcast.com. Until next time.